Now I'm going to be reading a short story, or actually a short piece, by Mark Twain called Cornpone Opinions. I'm going to be reading this and demonstrating the right way to annotate and think about my reading as I go. I want you to pay attention to what I'm doing and try to make a list of the things that you think good readers do based on what I am demonstrating to you as a mentor reader. I am considered a master of this topic, which is why I'm teaching you. So make sure that you are taking notes on what you see me doing as a reader. So this is called Cornpone Opinions by Mark Twain. What I know about Mark Twain is that he is a famous American author. Mark Twain is not his real name. I don't remember his real name right now off the top of my head. What else I also know is that the word cornpone is sort of a slang term for a food that a lot of rural and more poor Americans have eaten throughout history. It's basically cornbread, but made out of cornmeal. So let's see what this is going to be about. It should be interesting knowing Mark Twain. He's pretty funny. 50 years ago, when I was a boy of 15 and helping to inhabit a Missourian village on the banks of the Mississippi, I had a friend whose society was very dear to me because I was forbidden by my mother to partake of it. All right, so the word society, I know that in his day they would often use the word society to mean their company, being in their presence. So he was forbidden to have society with this boy. He was a gay and impudent and satirical and delightful young black man, a slave, who daily preached sermons from the top of his master's woodpile with me for sole audience. All right, so I also know that back then the word gay did not mean homosexual like it does now, but instead means very happy. And yes, I just realized I spelled homosexual wrong. There we go. Okay. Alright, so right off the bat, I notice he is hanging out with a black man, a slave. So this is obviously back in at least the 19th century, maybe even earlier. He imitated the pulpit style of the several clergymen of the village and did it well, and with fine passion and energy. To me, he was a wonder. I believed he was the greatest orator in the United States it would some day be heard from. But it did not happen. In the distribution of rewards, he was overlooked. It is the way in this world. Well, that's pretty sad. I noticed the word orator, which I know is a word for a public speaker, a very good public speaker. Okay. So something I noticed at the end here is he's trying to get us to feel a certain way. So I'm actually going to move that down here. No, it's not going to work. Okay. Yeah, he wants us to feel a certain way. Wants us to feel bad for him, for his friend. Okay, sorry if my typing is loud. He interrupted his preaching now and then to saw a stick of wood, but the sawing was a pretense. So here, pretense. I know that pretense means he is pretending, he is faking. He did it with his mouth, exactly imitating the sound the bucksaw makes in shrieking its way through the wood, but it served its purpose. It kept his master from coming out to see how the work was getting along. I listened to the sermons from the open window of a lumber room at the back of the house. One of his texts was this: "You tell me whar a man gets his cornpone, and I'll tell you what his pinions is." Well, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what he's going to tell us about. I'm really confused right now. What the heck is he saying? That's what I want to know. So we'll find out. I can never forget it. It was deeply impressed upon me by my mother. not upon my memory, but elsewhere. She had slipped in upon me while I was absorbed in not watching. The black philosopher's idea was that a man is not independent and cannot afford views which might interfere with his bread and butter. If he would prosper, he must train with the majority. In matters of large moment, like politics and religion, he must think and feel with the bulk of his neighbors, or suffer damage in his social standing and in his business prosperities. He must restrict himself to corn-pone opinions, at least on the surface. He must get his opinions from other people. He must reason out none for himself. He must have no first-hand views. Okay, I need to break this down a little bit. Okay, so I've just written some thoughts down here of what I think this character might be saying. It seems he might be saying that some men are not as valued as others in society and must therefore be careful with sharing their opinions so they do not cause themselves trouble, especially if he's a black slave in a racist society. So here I've written some thoughts on what I think of this passage. I think Jerry was right in the main, but I think he did not go far enough. Okay, so Jerry is the name of the guy, which I think is important. Number 1. It was his idea that a man conforms to the majority view of his locality by calculation and intention. This happens, but I think it is not the rule. 2. It was his idea that there is such a thing as a first-hand opinion, an original opinion, an opinion which is coldly reasoned out in a man's head by a searching analysis of the facts involved, with the heart unconsulted, and the jury room closed against outside influences. It may be that such an opinion has been born somewhere at some time or other, but I suppose it got away before they could catch it and stuff it and put it in the museum. So I think what Mark Twain is trying to say is that there is no such thing as an original opinion, and if there is, they're rare. Okay. I am persuaded that a coldly thought out and independent verdict upon a fashion in clothes or manners or literature or politics or religion or any other matter that is projected into the field of our notice and interest is a most rare thing, if it has indeed ever existed. A new thing in costume appears, the flaring hoop skirt, for example, and the passers-by are shocked, and the irreverent laugh. 6 months later, everybody is reconciled. The fashion has established itself. It is admired now, and no one laughs. Public opinion resented it before. Public opinion accepts it now, and is happy in it. Why? Was the resentment reasoned out? Was the acceptance reasoned out? No. The instinct that moves to conformity did the work. Ooh, I like that sentence. The instinct that moves to conformity did the work. I think he's trying to say here that people want to blend in, ultimately. So even when something new comes along, it quickly becomes assimilated into the norm. Very deep stuff, Mr. Twain. It is our nature to conform. It is a force which not many can successfully resist. What is its seat? The inborn requirement of self-approval. We all have to bow to that. There are no exceptions. Even the woman who refuses from first to last to wear the hoop skirt comes under the law and it is its slave. She could not wear the skirt and have her own approval, and that she must have, she cannot help herself. But as a rule, our self-approval has its source in but one place and not elsewhere. The approval of other people. Yes, definitely. I know that feel. A person of vast consequences can introduce any kind of novelty in dress, and the general world will presently adopt it. Presently, I know, means quickly. So I'm going to put that there. That means quickly. So a person of vast consequence. So a very important person. Okay. Moved to do it in the first place by the natural instinct to passively yield to that vague something recognized as authority, and in the second place by the human instinct to train with the multitude and have its approval. An empress introduced the hoop skirt, and we know the result. A nobody introduced the bloomer, and we know the result. Bloomers being underwear. Lol. If Eve should come again in her ripe renown and reintroduce her quaint styles, well, we know what would happen, and we should be cruelly embarrassed, along at first. So he's making a reference to Eve's nakedness in the Garden of Eden. Very tongue-in-cheek, Mr. Twain. The hoop skirt runs its course and disappears. Nobody reasons about it. One woman abandons the fashion. Her neighbor notices this and follows her lead. This influences the next woman, and so on, and presently the skirt has vanished out of the world. No one knows how, nor why, nor cares, for that matter. It will come again, by and by, in due course will go again. Okay, I want to know, why is this guy going on and on about hoop skirts? They're not even that interesting. "25 years ago in England, 6 or 8 wine glasses stood grouped by each person's plate at a dinner party, and they were used, not left idle and empty. Today there are but 3 or 4 in the group, and the average guest sparingly uses about 2 of them. We have not adopted this new fashion yet, but we shall do it presently. We shall not think it out, we shall merely conform and let it go at that. We get our notions and habits and opinions from outside influences. We do not have to study them out." Okay, so he's kind of talking about how trends come and go, fashions change. Also, being a fancy dinner party guest sounds tedious. "Our table manners and company manners and street manners change from time to time, but the changes are not reasoned out. We merely notice and conform. We are creatures of outside influences. As a rule, we do not think, we only imitate. We cannot invent standards that will stick. What we mistake for standards are only fashions, and perishable." Perishable being temporary. "We may continue to admire them, but we drop the use of them. We notice this in literature. Shakespeare is a standard, and 50 years ago we used to write tragedies which we couldn't tell from somebody else's, but we don't do it any more now. Our prose standard, 3/4 of a century ago, was ornate and diffuse. Some authority or other changed it in the direction of compactness and simplicity, and conformity followed, without argument." So prose, he's talking about writing that is not poetry or music. So basically, this is prose because it's written in paragraph form. Then he said ornate and diffuse. So, overly decorated, beautiful, but useless. Okay. The historical novel starts up suddenly and sweeps the land. Everybody writes one, and the nation is glad. We had historical novels before, but nobody read them, and the rest of us conformed, without reasoning it out. We are conforming in the other way now, because it is another case of everybody. Because it is another case of everybody. Oh my goodness. That reminds me of the phrase, everybody's doing it. Interesting. The outside influences are always pouring in upon us, and we are always obeying their orders and accepting their verdicts. The Smiths like the new play. The Joneses go to see it, and they copy the Smith verdict. Morals, religions, politics get their following from surrounding influences and atmospheres, almost entirely. Not from study, not from thinking. A man must and will have his own approval first of all, in each and every moment and circumstance of his life, even if he must repent of a self-approved act the moment after its commission, in order to get his self-approval again. But, speaking in general terms, a man's self-approval in the large concerns of life has its source in the approval of the peoples about him, and not in a searching personal examination of the matter. Mohammedans are Mohammedans because they are born and reared among that sect, not because they have thought it out and can furnish sound reasons for being Mohammedans. We know why Catholics are Catholics, why Presbyterians are Presbyterians, why Baptists are Baptists, why Mormons are Mormons, why thieves are thieves, why monarchists are monarchists, why Republicans are Republicans, and Democrats, Democrats. We know it is a matter of association and sympathy, not reasoning and examination, that hardly a man in the world has any opinion upon morals, politics, or religion which he got otherwise than through his associations and sympathies. And this really reminds me of the current state of the world. How many people can truly say they speak for themselves? How many can say their thoughts are original? Or are we all living in our own echo chambers? An echo chamber being you don't have anyone around you to contradict your ideas or help you challenge them. Okay. That hardly a man in the world has an opinion upon morals, politics, or religion which he got otherwise than through his associations and sympathies. Broadly speaking, there are none but cornpone opinions, and broadly speaking, cornpone stands for self-approval. Self-approval is acquired mainly from the approval of other people. The result is conformity. Sometimes conformity has a sordid business interest, the bread and butter interest. Sordid meaning evil. But not in most cases, I think. I think that in the majority of cases it is unconscious and not calculated, that it is born of the human being's natural yearning to stand well with his fellows and have their inspiring approval and praise, a yearning which is commonly so strong and so insistent that it cannot be effectually resisted, and must have its way. A political emergency brings out the cornpone opinion in fine force in its two chief varieties, the pocketbook variety, which has its origin in self-interest, and the bigger variety, the sentimental variety, the one which can't bear to be outside the pale. Pardon me. Can't bear to be in disfavor, can't endure the averted face and the cold shoulder. Wants to stand well with his friends, wants to be smiled upon, wants to be welcome, wants to hear the precious words, "He's on the right track," uttered perhaps by an ass, but still an ass of high degree, an ass whose approval is gold and diamonds to a smaller ass, and confers glory and honor and happiness and membership in the herd. For these guards, many a man will dump his lifelong principles into the street, and his conscience along with them. We have seen it happen, in some millions of instances. So basically everybody is a follower, according to Mr. Mark Twain. Men think they think upon great political questions, and they do, but they think with their party, not independently. They read its literature, but not that of the other side. They arrive at convictions, but they are drawn from a partial view of the matter in hand and are of no particular value. They swarm with their party, they feel with their party, they are happy in their party's approval. And where the party leads, they will follow, whether for right and honor, or through blood and dirt and a mush of mutilated morals. Ooh. That was some alliteration right there. I like that. I'm going to remember that I saw some alliteration right there. In our late canvass, half of the nation passionately believed that in silver lay salvation, the other half as passionately believed that that way lay destruction. Do you believe that a tenth part of the people on either side had any rational excuse for having an opinion about the matter at all? I studied that mighty question to the bottom, came out empty. Half of our people passionately believe in high tariff, the other half believe otherwise. Does this mean study and examination, or only feeling? The latter, I think. I have deeply studied that question too, and didn't arrive. We all do no end of feeling, and we mistake it for thinking. And out of it we get an aggregation which we consider a boon. A boon is something worthwhile, something you want. Its name is public opinion. It is held in reverence. To revere something is to think it is special. It settles everything. Some think it the voice of God. Ooh, that gave me chills right there. That was an intense way to end it. Well, this has left me with lots to ponder, and if I were a really good reader, I would go back and read it again. So, hopefully you got a list of things that I did while I was reading.